Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Cool.
Hello, apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat. This is Dimp Digital's flagship video game podcast where we take you through the ups and the downs of the wonderful world of video games. We are here on your favourite podcast app and YouTube, absolutely free. However, if you want to support our independent grassroots endeavour, head over to patreon.com/dimpdigital or twitch.tv/dimpdigital and join the community. Hashtag and in pocket. Plenty of that being done last night of those London beer prices. Hands in pockets. Haven't checked the accounts. Always dangerous. So could be completely brassic, as Biff would say, and stinking hangover to boot. So a real disaster day. I'm going to kick the podcast off nice and positively there and just let everyone know I'm suffering. I'm moaning about it. I'm not happy.
Well, set your stall out early.
Yeah.
Those. I'd probably suggest you don't look at your bank account. Just wait until you get paid. That's
That's
what
true.
I say. Then it looks a lot better, and all the harm is forgotten.
I'm trying to think when they pay it. It used to be a thing where you'd get paid early in December and think, cool, this is great. And then you get to the arse end of January and you're in a real torrid state because you're lasting longer. But I don't know when they're going to pay us this time. But
Yeah, I used to have that, but now it's just like last working day before Christmas, I think. And they go, just deal with that. And I'm like, fine.
It's the same,
It's
yeah.
the 23rd.
Easy pickings. That's the resident referee Logan that you're hearing there. Didn't actually introduce him. The nearly man, although, as we record this, we are minutes away from the season officially ending. So at some point during the podcast, I will run the final score check and we will know for sure who has won officially the Grand Prix and the FGL Championship as it is. Rumblings going on of rule changes, upsetting Logan, who, you know, potentially is not in favour of that. But trouble is, Logan, you've got people that you send them a message of all the details and they say, don't care either way. And then you're like, well, what are we doing? How's this ship supposed to be directed when that's the level of input being put back? And you know if it does change, they'll be the first to moan.
Well, you just put it out there to the exec board.
Well,
That'll be the decision makers.
I might have to re-invoke that exec board. Giving everyone an equal chance, I don't think works. There's too much bollocks.
Too many, you just have to cut it down to the exec board, I think, sometimes, and then that will make decisions on behalf of the group. But it ain't hard to have an opinion on something, one way or the other.
No.
I think it's fine the way it is.
Well,
personally, I think the one thing that I poo-pooed, I think, was that I was like, when you said about having the free transfer pool.
yeah,
I was like,
didn't like the idea of that.
Well, I was like, what's
the
It's
point?
not that I didn't like the, but I was like, no one's really going to pick anything up out there because chances are, if it's getting chucked in the bin, it's for good reason, and it, but
It never. To be honest, it hasn't actually been a scenario that's come up at all. No one used it, like, as I suspected, but I still think there's opportunities for that to play a part, whether it be good or bad. And
arguably,
save people a bit of a.
It's that penalty, right? So if I can pick up something and not incur a 5-point penalty, there's an argument that I could pick up something that could score in the 70s, penalty, and that's better than something that scored 80.
Yeah.
You just got to run the numbers and take a gamble.
Yeah. Well,
when you've got people picking the sometimes like Salmon and Adcock have, and you go, well, no, I'm absolutely not going to pick any of that old rubbish up.
No, absolutely not. Well, let's get into some news-ish items for the episode. Obviously, we'll end the podcast with some impressions, and it'll be for God of War Ragnarok, so often I will not reveal that until the back end, but that's the little... I act as though people don't read the show notes. It's written there in front of them. They already know. So actually, it's not a surprise to anyone, but that's coming. Adkins and I both platinumed it as well. So this is
Platt Brothers.
The Platt Brothers. Biff's even platinumed it. I got a message today saying he'd gone through and done it. So he's not a trophy hunter at all. He simply doesn't do it, and I'm not really. But I think if things are in reach and I can naturally get to close to getting it, I may as well do the extra legwork to finish it off. So that'll be coming to end the episode. But had a reasonably newsworthy week. Microsoft, 2 of the 3 sort of items we've got here, not really good news stories in either of them, unfortunately. The Greenbloods not had a good week as far as I'm concerned. And the Game Awards happened also, and they were absent from that. Didn't show nothing. So Phil was sitting there in the audience. I watched it. I fell asleep halfway through, but Phil was sitting in the audience, clapping all this stuff in. I was like, you're not showing anything, mate. He had face like thunder as well. I think he was annoyed about this FTC thing we're going to talk about. He looked fuming. And because he's like the happy-go-lucky guy.
Yeah, he is.
He's everyone's mate, isn't he? He's friend of the show, as we know. But let's start off with the chronological ordering of things, which was that they are going, Microsoft, to bump up the prices of their games to $70. Now, I've been searching high and low as to exactly, what this means for the UK crowd. Couldn't find anything. I don't know if you've seen anything in your travels, but basically in the statement it says there'll be news coming for other regions. So we don't know how it's going to affect us here, which is really what matters. Don't care too much about those Americans, I'm afraid. They can stomach an extra $10. That's fine for them. But the obvious kind of statement to make is that yes, the games are going up to $70, but the secret weapon that Microsoft do have is Game Pass, meaning there's 25 million. Some say there's nearly 30 million now members on that really won't be affected by this because they're already offering their games at a very cheap rate to rent. We must always keep in mind that it's a rental service at the end of the day. There's no ownership there. So ignoring that obvious fact that Game Pass is there and an option and would in most circumstances save people money if they chose to. If you're in the position of buying games, maybe you're a collector or you just like the idea of having the game. I know people say, you don't own the game, you just own the licenses, check the EULA or whatever it is. I'm like, yeah, I know all that bollocks, but for all intents and purposes, you feel like you're buying something, there's a transaction taking place, download it, unplug it all, and it'll stay there. I can't think of any good way to spin this $70 crap because others are at it, as Souness would say, they're all at it, and it's just that Xbox have decided to join the party. But any thoughts on this $70 and most likely going to be 70 quid on these shores potentially?
No, I mean, trying to think of a truly Xbox only game that I've wanted to play.
Don't get up at more. He's already starting on them.
No, but I'm just saying, in terms of the overall impact, it's most of the stuff they've released of late. I'm happy to wait for or pick up on Game Pass.
Yeah.
I don't know whether this will be more of an incentive to get people on Game Pass. It's like, well, you can play it for $10 a month or whatever it is here, or you can pay $70, or whether they just looked at the competition and gone, well, we've got free money here.
Yeah.
We're not going to get bad publicity necessarily because you look across the road and look what they're doing.
Yeah.
So everything's always going to be priced in relation to the competition. So, it's one of those things that's probably always been, going to be on the cards. But didn't Phil say something saying, he did some loose wording a little while ago, a couple of months back, didn't he? To say there's nothing, we're not planning to do something. So it basically said there's nothing going to happen now, but we might do something.
Initially we had the whole Jim chucking the price of that PlayStation up in certain markets. Then Microsoft came out and said we have no plans for that ourselves, sort of getting on the good guy train. And it was probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago he had that interview, and then he was sort of saying, well, we've resisted the urge to price increase our services, our subscriptions, our hardware and our games. But we may have to do that. Nothing will be happening for this year, but next year we'll revisit that. So clearly, as soon as that came out of his mouth, you're like, well, buckle up. And I think at that point I said, look,
incoming.
Get subscribed to this Game Pass if you're on board and love it. Stack it up for the 3 years you can get because there's a chance that that's going to go up as well. So he's already kind of, in a PR sense and optically prepared people for this news that'll be occurring. And Yeah, it's not good, is it? I mean, again, I'd say what I said before when Sony put the price of the hardware up. We could all say, oh yeah, that inflation, yeah, well done. Well, you have to do that, but it's an active choice to do it. They're not hard up. They're not hemorrhaging. Well, I would hope they're not hemorrhaging money off the back of this. It's a money game, but it's the reality, and they were always going to follow suit as soon as pretty much every other publisher out there started doing it. Even we were talking just off air quickly about Callisto Protocol and how that's just being crapped on widely, and I just can't understand it myself. And I think one of the reasons, having read some of the more critical reviews, is they do more than other games. They mentioned the $70 price point, and I'm wondering, sort of to transition into sort of the next question, whether now that Microsoft, despite Game Pass being there for 10, 12, 15 quid, whatever kind of tier you're on, and despite that completely nullifying the $70 or the £70, will the games now come under more scrutiny because they're at this sort of more premium price point? There's still games coming out today that are 60 quid. There's still games coming out that are 55 quid. Elden Ring, 50 quid in the United Kingdom, that was. Horizon Forbidden West, 3 weeks earlier, 70 quid. So there's still that kind of level, of that staggering. Some companies are doing it, some companies are not. But do you think this will put the crosshairs on Microsoft a little bit more? And they'll be like, right, now you're playing this $70 game. We're going to be scrutinising these games a bit more heavily than we would have done if you were chucking them out for a tenner cheaper.
I'm really conflicted about this pricing piece because ultimately it shouldn't be driven by. I mean, if you got it for free, it's the same game.
Yeah.
Like, there's no difference in what you're playing other than the money you've outlaid for it. So I struggle with the concept that the price should be a determinant factor in a review of a game. Like, there's a separate discussion around whether we think that's appropriate for games. I argue with myself because ultimately, if you pay something, you want good value. Value is a very subjective thing, though. So how do you say whether something is good value? Because as we've discussed a million times before, Assassin's Creed is God knows how long. Like,
2 years of free updates being rolled out of that for real value being added, but is it actual value? Because is
it value just because it's content? And this is the difficult part. It's a really tricky one to judge. I don't think that games should be given a harder time because they're $10 above what others are, because it shouldn't really be a hugely determinant factor in the enjoyability of a game. Like, really, what you're saying is this a good and enjoyable game for what it's telling me it should be? So where does the price come into that?
Yeah, I tend to agree because, and there would be exceptions to this. I've said it before. If Rockstar come out and said, right, GTA 6, 200 quid.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute, let's be reasonable. But as long as it's in the ballpark of what is reasonable, and I think going forward they're going to try and stretch what's reasonable. 75 one day, then it'll be $80. At some point, it will be paying 100 quid a game. 5-10 years time, that's going to be a reality, unless by then the subscription model has completely, overtaken the way that gaming kind of operates at that level. So I tend to agree that as long as it's within the reasonable parameters of, not being silly with it, then it shouldn't be a factor at all. And after these fucks that review it, they don't pay for it anyway. So they're detached from even experiencing it on that level. They're detached from having to actually pay for it. It's been delivered to them early. We spoke last week about the embargo rush and how that that's not a healthy environment to review a game in, to get the most sort of unbiased view of that. Like, if you've got an embargo you need to reach, it's not great. And the money thing's just another kind of layer of that, isn't it? Like you said, it's completely subjective. $70 or 70 quid to someone might mean nothing at all, or it might mean, well, I can only buy one of those every couple of months. That's a big kind of commitment to go down that route. But there never is going to be this one uniformed kind of view of, that's at the right price for X reason. And I feel like as long as it's within the reasonable parameters, we're okay to kind of ignore it for the most part.
I mean, you know, imagine if Callisto Protocol was 25 quid. Like, you'd be going, that's good value.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if the game's still not very good, or there's issues with the game, they're still prevalent.
It's impossible to do because we can never put the game back in the box and resell it. But it would be an interesting experiment if someone can do some sort of time travel and fuck with things. Just chuck that game out again at 25 quid and see what the scores mean there. Do the fundamentals of the game still irk people enough that it sits on its sort of like 72 or 73 that it's on OpenCritic? Or would they be like, oh, for 25 quid, this is actually amazing?
Yeah.
Because...
But I just find that it's such a bizarre way of... Like, surely if you're reviewing something... And it's weird, right? Because gaming and media and everything, I think it's a hard thing, as I've just said, to ascribe a value for money to. If you get a mobile, if you get technology, if you get a car, if you get something that has a real world value and you get it for a price, or you buy services and you get it for a price, like, there's something comparative to say whether that is good value or not.
Yeah.
But with a game, like, it's a really difficult thing to say whether that is good value. And I don't know. I really do struggle with it.
Well, gaming you can make as cheap as you want as well. If you can forego buying it in the first weekend, you can wait for it to be 10 quid. I could you go, oh, I'm not paying 70 quid. Actually, Callisto Protocol was 55 quid, not 70.
Yeah.
But it was $70. It's one of the weird. Sometimes we get striped up, sometimes we don't. Anyway, but you can make the game as cheap as you want. You can wait for a price that you're happy with and go for it then. So and again, to assign a critical kind of lens over it based on the price is inherently just...
It's release price. It's a great point, actually. The price that a game's released at, because someone might read that review 2 years later and play it.
Exactly.
And it's obviously a completely different price, and therefore the fact that you've marked it down or reviewed it
is irrelevant.
Is irrelevant. It's an irrelevancy because the price isn't consistent.
After 3 months,
the gameplay and everything.
After 3 months, that criticism is just... I don't know why they age themselves. Like it seems like it's a cheap way to analyse things. And like I said, I get if it was silly money and it's outside of the realms of what we expect, but generally you can sit there or you can wait for it to come to Game Pass or PlayStation Extra if it comes to that. I'm sure one of those services will pick it up in the next year or two.
It's interesting though, because how many things do you read where they criticise it? I mean, some things, like if you read a car review and they go, well, at least it's priced at X amount. But there's very few things that I read, because I make the determination around what price I want to pay or what my budget is. So I might be reading a review for a monitor for a phone or something that's on offer now. And it's like, I'm not interested, is the screen good? Is it durable? Is it this, that, and the other? I wouldn't expect to see in a review good, but... it might say slightly pricey at RRP or something along those lines, but ultimately it shouldn't really be part of the core viability of the product, I think.
No, I tend to agree with that. So this is like the first kind of price raise that Microsoft have done. And I split them up into sort of three pillars. You've got the games, which this is what impacts here. You've got their hardware, and then you've got their services, which is like Game Pass, for example. Is this phase one of three, i.e. this is phase one of the price increases, and then phase two might be the hardware, phase three might be Game Pass? Do you foresee this to be the end of this upping of prices from Microsoft's perspective, or is this going to be something that over the next year or so, we're going to get these news stories and they go, right, now the console's gone up, now Game Pass has gone up? What are you feeling in your waters that they will do or won't do potentially?
I think I'd still be surprised if they up the price of the console. I think it wouldn't be too surprising to see them up the price of the live service stuff and the Game Pass and whatnot. But I, for some reason, I don't know why, I'd just be surprised to see the core hardware being increased. But the current environment's so unpredictable. I think the one thing I find it interesting that they're putting a price up at a time when people have arguably got less money than ever. I don't know whether that's
it's always the
valid
way, isn't
statement.
it? It's all.
But do you know what I mean, though? But it's really difficult because their employees are going to want uh, wage rises in line with inflation, like cost of living rises. They want 10% more. Like, where do you find that from? And you end up pulling it from our pockets. It's a really tricky environment because you surely want to make your prices as available as possible in a time when people haven't got as much spare cash for things like games and gaming. It's a complete luxury, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd dispute that. I think it's an essential, but some people see it as a luxury, and you're putting the prices up. I think that's challenging. And to your point, then Microsoft ain't hard up.
No.
I think there's very few companies that are going to be cash rich, but they certainly will be. So all they're trying to do is just move the margins alongside cost, right? They're saying we've got a 50% margin or whatever of profit. Well, our costs have gone up 5%, so let's put prices up X amount, and that's all it is. It's just passing that along to the consumer.
Yeah.
But everyone does it, so it's hard to be super targeted at someone like Microsoft or Sony when eggs are going up, fuel's gone up, gas, electricity, like you name it, wood, like copper, metal, everything's gone up.
Last night, that's gone up.
Beer, yeah. This is what I mean.
Train tickets. Can't even get a train these days.
Well, no, that's not allowed, especially next week. But yeah, so it's no one wants prices to go up, but more than ever in the current environment, they will. So we can castigate Microsoft as all we like, but
they'll just do him. Yeah, you're correct. When do you expect to see so we're sort of poo-pooing the hardware potentially? So let's throw that in the bin. Game Pass.
We do that for PlayStation, and then immediately the 2 weeks
I know.
Put it up, so put the mockers on it.
Yeah. So for Game Pass, when would you see them do this? Is this something that happens within the next year, or like for the next financial year? Do they say right from April onwards?
Yeah.
Now is it that?
It'll be. If
you know what these
crooks
crooks are up to in that boardroom? They're all cooking this stuff up. So
yeah, I think it depends when looking at the numbers for the year.
Or do they do it just as the games start to re-release and they go, right, next month Starfield's here and Game Pass goes up next month also, to try and dangle the carrot?
Well, I think they'll just do it, and then and anyone that wants that Starfield, for example, gets snowed up in it. But it wouldn't surprise me if it comes. I really hope it doesn't, because I think it's great value. But it'll still be great value if they increased it by £1 or £2.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to complain, but I'd rather.
But you don't want to clap it in, do you? You don't want to clap in more money going out your pocket. Like
I never do.
It's fine to recognise what good value it is, but it's also fine to say I don't want it going up anymore.
Yeah, I want to keep good value.
I want to keep it.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be a no-brainer, which at the moment it is.
Yeah.
And if it becomes a no-brainer, if it starts to become a question, then I think that's the balancing game they want to play. They want to be on the right side of things, where there's many people like us that just say, yeah, absolute no-brainer to have that, even if they're not churning out first-party stuff. They've got such good third-party support and indies and whatnot. It's fine. But if they start to creep up and you're like, now just that little bit of hesitation. They don't want to push people too far, but also maximise.
I mean, it's a tricky one. I just I hope they keep it. I'd like them to keep it as it is for next year, and then I can't have too many complaints if they put it up in 2024. But I suppose it depends how the balance sheet's looking for Phil, and whether he needs to get a few extra quid in or not to meet his targets for his bonus. That's probably what it'll boil down to.
Well, I imagine that one of his or one of the big goals, I guess, for the company was to close this Activision and Blizzard King deal down, and the big boys in terms of the regulation world, the one that everyone kind of looks at and says, look, I'd actually argue the EU as well, are actually quite stringent. They fucking stung those Apple bastards with that charging cable, haven't they? Which is a net positive for everyone involved, but they're starting to get a bit nasty with it. But the FTC have confirmed they're going to sue to try and block the Activision Blizzard deal that Microsoft has been proposing and trying to get through various regulations for the best part of a year now. I was surprised to see this because I just thought that they wouldn't. Now, I don't know enough about exactly how this operates. My recommendation is people go to Hogue Law YouTube channel and listen to what he has to say. He'll have a balanced and kind of scenario-based, here's what could happen and might happen. But my basic understanding from what I've listened to previously of his stuff is that basically this goes to court now if Microsoft want to challenge it, or they make concessions beforehand, it doesn't go to court, or they can try and operate with, without the FTC's kind of blessing, if you will. But that comes with penalties and other things. Like, you can still operate in the markets, but you're typically charged a shitload of penalties because you're not, you're essentially breaching, one of the regulators. But Microsoft has said they're, as you'd expect, gonna fight this, as you would expect. This is a massive, huge amount of money, which I think gets lost on us. $69 billion. I mean, you chuck it around, and people keep saying it as though it's nothing, but it's an absurd amount of money.
Yeah,
it's so much money. And they're like, well, yeah. They bought Bethesda and ZeniMax for $7 billion. This is only a little bit more, huh? It's loads more. It's nearly 10 times as much. And it's billions of dollars. Billions. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge amount of money. Phenomenal amount of money.
Yeah.
It often, I work in finance, you see these numbers and it sometimes gets a little bit lost on you.
Yeah.
And it's one of them where you just go, well, because you go 69 billion, it doesn't sound a lot. But when you look at the zeros, it bloody is.
Yeah.
But I guess I am surprised that I'm not by all this going on. I mean, usually before these sort of deals go through, there's tentative discussions, inquiries. You basically go, look, is this going to get through or not? Because otherwise we ain't going to waste our time and money. And they'll look at it and they'll go, well, yeah or no. But there will, it doesn't always work. I guess, this is... I think the biggest problem they've had is the outrage from PlayStation and Sony, which is understandable and should have been anticipated.
Jim's played a blinder, isn't he? He really has done Phil over, really. He's already had him publicly say 10 years, so he's already had an extension on whatever a previous offer was made. And now he's rattled the cages of the regulators to start interfering and getting in the way.
Jim, to be fair to him, has done exactly what he should have done. But he sits at home at night with a whiskey going, cackling to himself about how well he's played it. I feel like Phil's been, despite being a friend of the show, he's been very naive, I think, in some of the way that he's approached it. Like, he has, though, hasn't he? Like, when you look at it and you think how you want to play things from a PR perspective, he's played everything a bit close to his chest, and I don't know. And then you see the comments start to come out going, oh, no, we've given them this, we've given them that, we're doing that, this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, bit too late, Phil. You weren't very charitable at the start, and that's obviously what's got people's backs up. I mean, if it was me, I would have definitely tried to have done some sort of deal with Jim beforehand.
Yeah.
If I could have done.
But Jim's just put the crapper on it and gone, even if it's actually a pretty reasonable deal, it seems like they're intent on just saying no so that it's
sabotage for sabotage's sake.
Yeah.
Like, he's literally, if it's any competitor, you're out to sink them if you can. And I think that's clearly what Jim's been pretty aggressive about, I think. I'm surprised to a certain extent how aggressive he's been in his condemnation of the deal and the impact it might have, and playing this whole "it's not good for gamers" thing. So you mean it's not good for PlayStation gamers? You've heard to say that. It's great for Xbox gamers.
Yeah. It's been interesting to see Jim just completely forego any optical wins, because they must know that it looks so hypocritical as well, some of the stuff they've come out and said about how they withhold content. It's like, you've got exclusive content on Call of Duty now on PlayStation only, timed and all this stuff. These same issues you're bringing up, you've kind of built your model on, but clearly they're aware of that. They're not stupid, and it's been interesting to see Jim happily just been like, yeah, I know deep down this is absolute ridiculous, hypocritical statements that we're making, but we're going to do what we can to get in the way of this and sting and ruin Phil's fucking lunch, which I think he did. As I said, he was sitting there at the Game Wars, looked fuming.
I mean,
Probably because it's fucking
I'd
4
quite
hours
like
long.
it to happen because it backs up my reason to have two consoles. Like,
Yeah.
the more parallels there are sometimes, in a real selfish way, I go, well, this is a justified. Like, I'm safe. Whatever happens,
It don't
I can
matter.
do whatever I like. It
Yeah.
don't matter. But sometimes I like to know, like, because really, I could play pretty much everything I play on the Xbox on a PlayStation if I wanted to. Yeah, I play the Xbox more than the PlayStation.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just quite like the idea that there's some things on the Xbox or whatever that actually give me a pretty good reason to play it, just beyond the fact that I just like the console, which is a ridiculous reason to do anything. But yeah, it doesn't. I don't know. I get more and more. I get the feeling like this ain't going to happen. And if it is going to happen, it's not going to have any real impact on on Call of Duty, for example, because I reckon whatever they'll do, they'll just go, yeah, we'll just make it available and continue to make it available for all the other consoles.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I'm kind of 50. I was pretty sure it would go through. So much so that I bought stocks of Activision Blizzard, expecting them to close the deal and sell it higher. Wasn't like loads of money, but I thought, well, this feels like a really easy bet. Now I'm sitting here and stock price is in the toilet a bit, so if I cash out now, I'll lose money. I've got to hope that Phil's lawyers can get this through. Otherwise, I just chucked away a couple of £100.
Well, it's the game you play. Sometimes you got to speculate to accumulate, and sometimes it goes in the toilet, and sometimes it doesn't. But these deals, I always thought this deal was going to be quite complex, especially because Jim set out his stall quite early on that he was going to be as disruptive as he could be. It'd be interesting to see where it goes. I mean, I feel like they've got them over the barrel a little bit with this whole, you're pleading you're going to do right by, the gamers, but previous purchases.
If this is it, look, the FTC statement claims, quote, Microsoft decided to make several of Bethesda's titles, including Starfield and Redfall, Microsoft exclusives, despite assurances it had given to the European antitrust authorities that it had no incentive to withhold games from rival consoles, end quote. So
basically, you've lied to us before, mate. Who's to say you ain't going to do it again?
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. All that bollocks. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we've been quite restrained in talking about every little update because it was just getting silly at one point where every week it was just like watching these ridiculous statements play out. But this is a big development. This is now the next stage. This is Microsoft will fight it. They've got the money to fight it. They would rather not have to do this. So we will see. I still think there might be concessions agreed and FTC then go, okay, if you agree to do this, then we ain't got to do this court thing. But if not, it's going to be a long, drawn-out process. As we know, the courts, particularly for things like this, are not particularly quick, I would hasten to guess.
No, I mean, at the very least, it's going to elongate the process. And again, Jim's sitting there with his whiskey feet up, laughing it away, because he goes, the longer this goes on, the better for me, because existing agreements continue.
Yeah. And I'll be cackling all the way to the bank with that. But any more major developments, obviously, we'll check in and see. But for now, we'll await and see where that goes. But the Federal Trade Commission getting up Phil's arse, it seems. So look, the Game Awards are done and dusted. The most controversial thing in gaming, it seems. You have people crying every year about nominees and who wins it, who didn't win it. No real... I looked through I watched the show, first of all. It was better than previous years. I did, as I mentioned earlier, fell asleep a little bit because I was hungover. So I had a little nap during some of the bits and pieces. But no real controversies for the game of the year. Elden Ring won. I think we both said we'd be surprised if that didn't get it. God of War or nothing really was going to be able to even attempt to challenge it. And it came through and Elden Ring run it. So that's in the books. Obviously, these particular events are packed full of trailers and games and all sorts. It's as much as a marketing showcase as it is an award ceremony at the end of the day. But did you see anything that tickled your fancy? Anything in there at all that you thought, oh, that's a nice little trailer? I wasn't expecting that. I've got a couple of things, but I don't think it was any sort of major like wow moments that you might expect of an E3 gone past, but it was still some interesting stuff lurking.
Not really. I mean, I think the most interesting bit was when that little kid come up on stage. And started
Right,
getting
what's he
involved.
talking about? I assume that was...
No, that wasn't scripted.
Like, he was talking about Bill
To my
Clinton
knowledge.
winning Game of the Year or something.
He come up and just went, Bill Clinton. Like, what? What's he doing? What's he getting involved? It was bizarre.
How does that happen?
Yeah. I don't know. So yeah, and I just saw loads of tweets of people just tweeting Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, before I'd seen it, I saw the comments saying, "Oh, congratulations to Bill Clinton, for winning Game of the Year." And I was like, "Oh, fuck."
Bill Clinton?
I glanced at it. I thought it was just some stupid YouTube comment, how people just write random shit. And then as it was winding down, he popped up and no one seemed to be pressing to stop him, sort of let him have his say. And then I saw the security scrambling sort of towards the back end. They zoomed out to try and cover it up, I guess. But he was still waffling away about old Billy. That probably was the best part of the show.
I was going to say, do you not think it's weird though that it's like the Game Awards of the year, but then there's this kind of focus on
it's a marketing thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Spinner,
I mean, I'm not naive. I understand why, but I just find it a bit odd.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it should be a celebration of everything that's been good that year, and then you kind of immediately onto what's next.
What's coming?
Yeah.
Well, I think to be fair, when we talk about let's live in a realistic world, and in reality, I just don't think many people would sit down and watch just an awards show.
Yeah.
If they just said we're just going to run through these 24 awards, people are going to come up and if people like
the Oscars.
Who watches that though? All people watched last time was Will Smith slapping that poor bloke. What's his name? Chris Rock, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's all anyone was talking about. But no one sits there and watches the fucking 4 hours of waffle. Yeah. I mean, Christopher Judge, who won Best Performer or Best Actor for Kratos, he was up there for 8 minutes waffling away. He was trying to suck the life out of them. Al Pacino was handing out an award. He couldn't read the teleprompter. If you've not seen it, it's the first award. Just watch that. It's 15 minutes of agony. Part of it's Christopher Judge's speech, and part of it's Al trying to fucking read the scripts, clearly struggling.
Why has he talked for 8 minutes? I didn't see that bit. 8 minutes.
Yeah, he's just thanking people. I mean, it's quite. I guess it's. I don't know. It's probably quite a proud moment, I guess. And for something like acting, it's not a solo endeavour, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've got to rely on the writing being there to help you, but generally, he plays a really good Kratos. I mean, he does.
Yeah.
Let's be frank. It is really good, but he was just he was loving it. He's absolutely lapping it up. And we'd already had just minutes before Al just really struggling. The poor bloke. He looks so old. Poor old cunt.
This tiny little text or something that he's trying to do.
It was just, and obviously because there's certain punchlines or a flow to it, the way it's been written. Yeah, he clearly did it.
Do you want to rehearse? Do you want to just have a look to see what it says, just to get? I'll just read.
He was just lost. It was really, it was quite sad to see in a way, just seeing poor Al struggling because no one can help him. He's just got to persevere and try and
hope for the best.
Poor fucker, but no. In terms of announcements. We saw there wasn't really a lot of things really. There was a lot of things, but I guess from my perspective, Death Stranding 2 has been confirmed, so I can build those fucking roads again.
Simulator.
Yeah, I'm well up for that. So I was surprised to see that because I just assumed that it was probably happening, but maybe not as quick as what I'd anticipated. Star Wars Jedi Survivor got a little gameplay trailer. Looks good. I don't know if you played the Fallen Order. It's on Game Pass. Do you know that's Star Wars? I thought you'd.
I do like Star Wars, but
third person. It's like a little Uncharted. It's not really Uncharted at all, but
no, I've never really played the single solo Star Wars games. I don't know why they've just never appealed to me, despite really liking Star Wars as a franchise.
Yeah, fair enough. That's coming in March. I'll no doubt play that because I enjoyed the the first one. Saw some Tekken 8, so Adkins will be absolutely loving that. Horizon Forbidden West gets some DLC, The Burning Shores. So I always say I'm going to play the DLCs when they come out, and I very rarely stick to that because there's normally a new game on the horizon, and I think, well, I'm best served doing that. But I will commit to that because I did enjoy that game a lot. From Software, so these are the Elden Ring and Soulsborne chaps. They've announced Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon. Now, I've never seen suddenly where all these Armored Core fans have come from. Going mental about it. Oh, hang on a minute. Have you played the old games? They're all right. They're all right, but they're not Elden Ring. But I think because it's From Software now, anything they do is going to get that
buff.
Yeah, they made a fucking VR game that was crap after Bloodborne, so I don't know. Armored Core is not what I'm looking for out of that studio, if I'm honest, but people will buy anything. We've got Final Fantasy 16's release date being confirmed and some more trailers. Cyberpunk's Phantom Liberty DLC got a little trailer. And
I saw. Yeah.
Many weeks ago, probably about 2 months ago, I said on a podcast, Idris Elba is going to be the star in that game. And now we have confirmation. So who are the real insiders in this industry? Is it me? It's not me. It didn't come from me. I won't tell you. I won't even tell you where it came from because that'll give away the source. But these Dimp tentacles going long and wide into the ether of the video game world. But really, those were the sort of the things I picked out. There's this crime boss, Rockay City, which looks awful in one ways, but like it's a clear rip-off of Grand Theft Auto, like Vice City, but first person. So loads of famous people in that. Michael Rooker.
This is what I mean. When you said, "Is there anything that jumped out to you?" It's like, no, it's not. Like, I can understand why some of them did to you, but yeah, I'm just a bit like,
No, it's fair enough. But the Game Awards are done for this year. The crying has stopped.
Yeah.
And we'll be moving on to 2023. The DICE Awards and GDC Awards will be sometime in March, and then that'll be that. Well, look, let's close the podcast out, or this section of the podcast, with the final results for the Fantasy Game League. I ran it at 5 o'clock as the rules dictate that I wrote myself and forgot. I used to get the timings. And that's it. The Fantasy Gaming League is now officially finished. So in the championship showdown between Paper and Parky, unsurprisingly, Paper has finished second in that endeavour. Parky is number one. He is the new Fantasy Gaming League champion. So well done to Parky for that. Great performance from him. 831 versus 809, an average of 84 versus an average of 82. So Parky's won that. And the Grand Prix, which is where Logan's at, you have officially won.
unbelievable.
The nearly man tag is gone. You've held off Adkins in the end. 807 versus 803, so comfortable in the end. But there was ups and downs during that because the scores were very fluid this year. But an average of 82, 807 takes you home. Adkins will forever rue this opportunity. Done the Spurs, as we said. Maybe that was their chance to win the league when Leicester won it, and he's lost out by 4 points. Quick thoughts. I mean, a proud moment. Now you've got a tag. You know, sort of use it as a comedy launching board, saying you haven't won anything, so there's nothing to say when we introduce you. Now you'll always be known as a Grand Prix winner.
Yeah, I mean, I after I started off this year with a load of blanks and stuff, I thought I've blown it again. Like literally, a false start straight off the grid. But yeah, I think what we said weeks ago, where I was like, I need Pentiment to do something unexpected, and it has. Well, not unexpected, but it's kind of hit the maximum it could have done.
Yeah, it's maximised. Yeah.
And I think getting that has obviously really helped. And Sonic was a little bit higher than we perhaps thought it might be. It's pretty much hit where we thought it would be.
Yeah.
That kind of has swung it, because after Football Manager, I was a bit like, oh, I've dropped some points there, and that's not really coming where I wanted it to. So, yeah, I'm really pleased. I've been giving it a go. over. Well, I've been giving it a go ever since we started, and never really got there. And I feel like I've probably been the most unlucky person in some ways.
I would agree
with how it's all kind of unfolded. So yeah, I'm pleased to finally sort of get that off my back, and we'll see what happens next year. Probably completely flunk it.
Well, we'll see. Absolutely. So there's still discussions going on with various parties around any changes. There might not be. We'll see. All that news will come in due course. But congratulations for yourself. That's a great performance. And 2022 Grand Prix winner is Logan, and the FGL champion for 2022 is Parky. Anyway, we're going to transition into some opinions on God of War. Said the Platinum Brothers of myself and Adkins waffle on for about 48 minutes or so, so you've got a nice meaty look at that. Spoiler free as usual, and we'll give you their opinions. The only fault, sometimes when I finish those things, I have faults afterwards and think I should have said that. The only fault that comes to mind for this is that, without giving too much away about the scoring and whatnot and what our conclusion was, I would be disappointed if by the end of this generation, God of War Ragnarok hasn't been lapped in some way. Like, if that's still one of the pinnacle games, I feel like we're on the cusp of we should be getting more, and it's kind of maximised last gen and the start of this gen what we can expect. But if we're sitting here in 5 years' time and that's still top of the list, I don't think things have moved on as much as we were expecting or hoping for. So yeah, if this came out in 5 years' time, for example, I think it would have a different perspective because we'd have experienced, hopefully, some more games. But still, generally loved it, and we'll talk about the things we like, the things we didn't like, and where we fall overall. So that's enough to treat you there. Logan, thanks once again for joining me. One more episode for the year. So next week, unless something absurd happens news-wise, it'll be the year in review, and then we'll be off for a couple of weeks. But we'll have hopefully the quiz, and don't know if we're going to do a results show for the Fantasy Gaming League. We'll see what's happening. But the quiz will be there to see people out. But the last sort of normal episode will be coming to your airways next week, and it'll be our year in review of 2022. But we're going to transition to God of War Ragnarok, myself and Adkins chatting your way through that, and we'll see you on the other side. Here we are then, back with some game impressions to close out this edition of Idle Game Chat, joined by Lashit himself, Tom Adkins, not Adcock, and we're here to talk about the one, the only, God of War Ragnarok. Boy, doesn't say boy as much. So
I thought that they've really...
I think they had to. I don't think they could get away with just that happening again, because it became a bit of... everyone basically ruined it because they kept saying boy. So I would imagine they were cognizant of that and thought, we can't allow people to keep saying that, and we won't. But no, this is, I don't know, I would say combined our most anticipated game for a while.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, I'm thinking back, like 2022, that was probably it probably is our highest anticipated. 2021, I don't see anything usurping it from there. No. Probably have to go back to The Last of Us Part 2 for me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking
another Sony. Oh, they're fanboys.
Fanboys.
They make some great games usually, so they're always there to be hyped up. But yeah, this is the big one. This is the Norse mythology being concluded also. So not the trilogy that many were speculating on. I assumed would happen. This is a 1-2 punch from Sony Santa Monica, and
cool.
We're gonna reveal our opinions on it. In terms of cards on the table, I don't know if we need to do too much other than just reiterate that, from my own perspective, really big fan of 2018 God of War. Platinum worthy, one of the games of last generation for sure in my book, and absolutely love that game. I think it's a really pound for pound one of the great video games we've had for a long time. But
yeah,
what about yourself? God of War 2018, and you've got a much more experience with the franchise as a whole.
Yeah.
I've actually only played God of War 3. All the rest have been caught up on through watching game movies. So God of War 3, and then 2018 was my kind of experience. But you've got the whole franchise going back.
Literally the old franchise. I don't remember buying them on PS. Did I have it on PS2? Or was I PS3? I think I started on PS3. I think I may have played them on 2, like a little bit around something else. I don't think I ever owned one. But then when they came out, they done like a classics HD remaster on the PS3.
Yeah.
And I bought that, and it was 1 and 2. Then they'd done the 2 PSP games. I think 3 came out actually. I bought 3 and was like, 3 was like one of my favourite games. Probably at that time it was up there, fucking top 5.
Yeah.
Then they've done the collection part 2, which was the 2 PSP games. And then they did Ascension, which was like right at the end of the PS3 life. Which I'm surprised they never remastered that, because that was a really good game. That's sort of like a prequel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been a fan from day dot almost. The old way, and then was so up for the new one. Played it, loved it, platinumed it like yourself. And have been definitely anticipating this one.
Yeah. We finally got our hands on it. And just so people know how long we've kind of spent with the game or what we've done, we've both got the platinum.
Cool.
So 2 platinum brothers here
down
to talk about Ragnarok. Reasonably, I'm going to say easy, but low taxing. I did it all without looking anything up either. So collectibles and whatnot, it all felt findable. I mean, I could have shaved off 10 hours had I not been doing it that way. But
I don't believe they had that option in the first game, unless I completely missed it. I mean, I did use a guide for the first one, especially for them ravens. But in this one, they had it like the little sections, didn't they? So you could find where bits was. Unless I did use a guide for one raven, I must admit I could not find it.
Bet it was in that fucking desert level.
Yeah, exactly it was.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, because I'm almost certain everyone is really struggling to find that, and I was just fucking lucky that I found that. But I know others have also been struggling. But I managed to get through it without any guides or anything. I don't think the platinum of the 2018 one only earlier in 2022, because I'd finished it but never gone through and done all the side stuff and whatnot.
Yeah, it was quite fair whack, to be fair, wasn't there?
Yeah, and I definitely used the guide in that one, because I wasn't.
I don't think they had this sort of, I don't really know what it is. It's like a sort of bit like a resi. It's not like the same where they blue tick a fucking area, but
no, it's not that helpful.
It just gives you a list of the areas within.
Yeah, so each realm has its own kind of smaller sub area, like the beach or whatever, and it'll have like, there's 3 ravens here, and it'll tick them off and say you've got 2 out of the 3. So you kind of know roughly where to at least focus your I think they may would have had that in the first one, but it wasn't. I don't think it was as granular as this, because I definitely. Well, you spend a lot of time rolling around that fucking lake, and it's like, well, that could be.
That's true.
Could be anywhere, but it's one of those things. Collectibles, they're always a bit of a chore, but
I ain't gonna see Biff doing it. I'll tell you.
No, you're not gonna see Biff doing that. I mean, has he ever got a platinum trophy at all?
No. That'd be a good thing to find out whilst we're going. I'm gonna search. I don't. The only thing I probably would is if he's completed a game where you get one
for doing the game, and
no, and he ain't even got one of them.
No,
he has 0 platinums, young Biffrin. Got some higher ones: 75%, 74% on Spider-Man, 75 on Sifu.
Yeah,
he's nearly man. Lots of 72 on Ratchet. Come on.
Yeah,
88% on God of War.
The original
2018.
He must be missing stuff like the Ravens then, because I know he went through all the combat stuff because he wanted to get those done. But yeah, we've both done the work. Do you know how many hours you clocked in at? Because it does actually have a helpful timer on the save file.
It does, yes. Mine was just slightly over 56 hours.
Yeah, mine was 62, I think, when it was all said and done. And I wasted 2 hours at the end trying to get one of the trophies, not realising not to buy things in the shop. I made up in my head. I made up some weird end game quest that didn't exist, and I thought, oh, it must be hidden or something. And and I just went over to the shop, and I was like, I haven't bought those items. I was like, oh, fucking hell, that's what I need. Bang, 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 and it pops. And I was like, that's a real unsatisfying way to get it, but got the job done in the end. Anyway, God of War Ragnarok, the follow-up, the 1-2 punch from 2018 to close off the Norse saga.
Did Eric do anything on the first game?
He would have been involved. He would have been a senior lead or some sort of...
I was very surprised that...
Combat, I think. I don't know, yeah. But
very surprised. They did this with the original trilogy. Corey stepped up and then took a back seat and then I don't even know if he was involved in the third. Not sure. But yeah, he sort of done this.
Jaffe did the first one, didn't he? And then I think
that's
Corey
right.
did the second one.
Corey was like an environmental artist, wasn't he? Then Corey took over, and then I think did Corey do 3 or did he?
I can't bloody remember.
Can't remember. But yeah, so Eric's taken the reins on this one.
Yeah, which I think we kind of speculated that there's some concerns going into this one.
Yeah.
And it's funny, actually. We haven't actually spoken about this game really at all. Normally, we're in each other's fucking WhatsApps going, not even a sausage, really, other than like some really...
I hate it.
Exactly. We may have had a real torrid time. So let's get in. I don't know where to start. I mean, let's do a bit of like narrative, and obviously we'll be... No spoilers here, as per usual. What I would say about the narrative, obviously, it's the conclusion of this of the Norse saga. And this is sort of a theme with the game itself. I would say is expansion, not expansion pack or anything. As in, the scope of it has been expanded. Like there's more characters. Scene by scene, there's more characters that you'll come across during the world. There's more perspectives that you'll see, and I think this comes at a relatively minor cost. I think on balance, this is kind of how I'm doing it, is comparing it a lot to 2018 because it's the fast follower. I think I preferred the more intimate story that 2018 told, which is almost solely about Kratos really kind of struggling to become a not horrible dad, basically, and kind of take the reins from that perspective. And in Ragnarok, this is not just about Kratos' story. This is as much about Atreus, as it is about Kratos, sort of like a coming of age type tale there. And the other supporting characters, nearly all of them have some form of arc, and there's insight into them and what they're up to, and they've got their own issues and things that kind of need to be borne out during this game. And we even get insight and perspective into the Asgardians, the Odin's kind of family and whatnot, which as an antagonist you don't normally get. You don't normally see what's going on the other side of the fence. You do get glimpses into that, which is an interesting kind of thing. But overall, all this kind of extra development increases the scope. Everything's bigger, it's grander, but I think I preferred the more centralized core of 2018 on balance. But fully aware that obviously because this is because of the way the first game kind of plays out, it is Kratos' story, but because of the events that transpire, like it's involving other people all throughout that game, you're kind of treading on people's toes and getting in the way, and it's the next stage logically would be what they've given us here, I think. I completely understand why they did it. I just felt like there's some really, really strong moments in this. Yes, really, they still have that. It's absolutely not a bad story. It's still excellent. But in comparison to 2018, I preferred the limited scope. What say you? Did you prefer this sort of not end game, but it kind of gave me vibes of that almost. That it's this big boom, here we go. Yeah, which is maybe what you expect for the conclusion of a saga.
Yeah, no, I think I'm with you on this. I do it as well. I feel it very does run parallel with The Last of Us. I think when you look at The Last of Us, the first story is a simple story of they have one goal: get this girl to the Fireflies. Boom! It's that intimate story about those two.
Mm-hmm.
Then 2 comes along, and you're like, right, what the fuck are we gonna do with this? Boom!
Yeah.
And then 2 happens. You're like, wow, fuck. Okay, I didn't anticipate that. I think it's a very similar story here. You got Kratos and Atreus. Take your ashes to the highest mountain. Boom, that story. This, you're like, what the fuck are they going to do then? And again, it's sort of, I did wonder, I had concerns to think, well, you know, how flawless that game was, how brilliant and in scope. What were they going to do with this? I do, I think just in general, I prefer those type of intimate stories and this that could have been a standalone on its own, and then wash it hands down. Sure, we would have wanted more.
Yeah,
but that's not to say that this is in any way a bad story. But I definitely prefer it. I think.
It's not a cut and dry, but I think that definitely. And also, and look, to be fair, Ragnarok does, in spite of the scenario, this is the scenario whether people care to admit it or not, God of War 2018 was at a massive advantage because it was a brand new take on a beloved franchise. Like it was new, it was fresh, it was exciting. Ragnarok loses that entire kind of, you know, that new feeling. It doesn't have that advantage of springing a trap on you and saying, "Yeah, here we go. You didn't expect this from us." In terms of just the gameplay elements as well, the whole thing is a retreading of stuff that's already been established. So it loses all those kind of advantages that a brand new, fresh take that 2018 had, and yet still delivers, I think, a faithful and a good conclusion to this arc, this mythology as they kind of been building it up as. So prefer 2018 for sure, but this is still good stuff. Don't be concerned too much unless you're really like only interested in, you know, the core kind of relationship of Kratos and Atreus. And whilst that is the focus, it goes a lot more places, involves a lot more people, therefore the overall sort of pacing is slightly different to that. And it's as I said, it's grander, it's bigger.
Very bigger, longer, bigger, faster, longer.
Yeah, exactly. Uncut. Speaking of uncut, there is you can tell they didn't cut anything from this bloody game.
Oh no, I didn't. It's only when I was listening to a podcast about it, a spoiler cast after I'd finished it. And I completely forgot at the same time that it's continued on with their one cut thing again, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it completely sort of passed me by this time, just because I think I was so used to it.
But again, that's another advantage it doesn't have. Like it loses.
No, exactly.
But you're already like shrugging your shoulders, going, "Well, that's just how it is." Like it's no longer like a special, really like incredible feat of a video game because you've seen it once and it still is. So yeah, there's definitely all those things that you know and love are there, and. They really did pack this game full of content and side bits and pieces, and it really is dense. Yeah. And there are entire sort of zones and areas that you will visit in this game that would be DLC, would be part of a season pass in lesser games. I couldn't believe sometimes just how it kept expanding, and I was like, this is just this is incredible, really. And one of the criticisms of the first one was people going, well, you're rolling around that Lake of Nine for 35 hours, it's fucking boring. They've basically taken that criticism to heart, and you've got far more places to explore. And it's not just the numbers of like, oh, you've got a number of different areas, the open areas to go and explore and, you know, mess around in. It's the diversity of the environments as well. They're all individual, they're all different. There's far many more realms for you to go off and do. So it really is, in terms of just a content kind of bag, if you look at it from that perspective, you've got a ton here. The question is that people have is, was there too much content? Now, did you do the classic clear down what's there, then move on? Or did you do a bit of a hybrid of, I'll start doing that and then towards the back end think, cool, this is heating up, I'll leave some stuff and then go back to it?
as far as I could go, I'd done everything that was available to me. I didn't clear down in terms of percent like that checklist thing. I didn't do that, but I did do any available side quests and clear up jobbies as far as I could go before I carried on with the main story.
Yeah.
But then, I was coming up against things that were. I was like, right, this clearly isn't for right now. This is a comeback job because I'm getting my ass kicked right now.
Yeah, you'll even get to random chests, and you'll think, how do I figure this out? And you'll chuck the axe at what you think's there, and they'll say, no, you haven't got what you need yet. And it's like, oh, okay, I'll come back. The only thing, the negative of that is that they still don't log these blocked paths or these blocked chests on your map anywhere, so you just have to kind of remember there's something back there to go and do and when you're kind of able to do it. I really think that's I was annoyed me in the first one, it annoyed me in this one, and speaking of things they could have addressed and perhaps should have addressed, that fucking map's still crap. Yeah,
that map.
It's useless. Isn't it?
That is. It is.
It's very art. It looks nice. You put that up on the wall and frame it. You'd be like, "Oh, beautiful!" But
aesthetics are beautiful. Usability,
as a functional tool, it really is a piece of crap.
Piece of crap.
Yeah.
And while we're kicking it, while we're down as well.
Go on, boot it one.
That fucking you told me about it. I did not know about it, and it was fighting those enemies, those tougher enemies. They're different coloured elf bars. I was like, right, why weren't there a tutorial about that? Either I missed it completely, it went over my head.
No, I don't think I never saw it, and I'd look at all the tutorials. I mean, you could easily miss it, but a lot of people, again, I've spoken to, I wasn't aware of that either. Trying to work out what the colours are. It's like, it doesn't really kind of overly tell. I don't think it tells you the first one. No, the only reason I knew is because I just sussed it out playing the first one again in 2022 just to do the rerun. I was like, oh, that's what the colours mean. Purple, you're going to struggle. Red, no chance, son. You want to get down to orange and yellow levels. If you've got a green, you'll piss it. So there's definitely issues like they could have ironed out. The people will moan about the fast travel as well, because you have to go through the bloody realm door. It's all very mechanical. Now, I appreciate that because, you know me, I don't like this going into a map and fast travelling with no context. No. And this adds that. But I'm a mental case. Most people just want to get to the next fucking area. Yeah. And they kind of left that in there. Probably, if we're speculating, a symptom of it being on the PS4. Because instant kind of loading is possible. We've seen it on the PS5. But when you got that old slot that you got to dev for,
cater for.
Yeah.
Although, I noticed that every time I went into that room, I found if you don't move your character, just stay still, it appears right in front of you.
Yeah.
And then, but if you look behind, it started over there. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, now I've got to run round to it.
Yeah.
Like, bloody hell.
Yeah. So they didn't improve things like that, which and the map as well were things that were criticised for, and the one that kind of irritated me was no logging of blocked paths. It's kind of like Metroid Vein 101. Like you kind of want to know that there's a blocked path there, so you can go back and unlock it when you've got whatever you need to get there. So that's the booting from that side of things. But content wise, we've got a packed game. Did the amount of side activities for you slow down the core narrative a little bit? Because I found that I'm sure one time I spent a good 8 hours between main quests because I had so much stuff that I could suddenly do. Yeah. And then I would go back and I thought, oh, this is fine. Like the pacing's fine. I didn't really feel it. But then in hindsight, I was thinking, I wonder if I'd have enjoyed the main narrative if I just kept on that and ticked it along quicker or not. It's hard to say now, but it's not how I played it.
It felt relevant because it didn't feel like I was at first. Like I think I remember getting to a point where I was like, "Fucking hell, I've been doing this for ages." Yeah. But it felt natural. It felt natural doing it. Yeah. It didn't feel like I was going, right, I'm going off to do side stuff now. There's even a few points in the game where they sort of advise you to go off and do stuff.
The characters say we can stay and explore if you like. We're not in a rush. I'm like, yes, thank you. Yeah. Because how many of these fucking games do you play? The world's ending or whatever, and they're like, quick, and you're like, well, hang on, I've got to go and find these flowers.
Exactly.
They give you permission in this game to go off and explore, and I love just that little small detail to encourage that, and I took full advantage of that when I had my chances.
No, I don't think it disrupted the pacing at any point, but no, there definitely was a section where I was like, "Cool, I ain't been on that main mission for a while. I better get back there soon."
Yeah.
But yeah, everything felt sort of natural and it felt relevant to the story. It weren't sort of, oh, fetch quest, go and get that from over there. It was always, like you say, it was either an extension of a story of another character, or it was, I don't know, it was just quite fun doing the missions or the little set objects you could do.
Yeah.
It was like them. It was like the bosses, not like sort of what they call them, like sub bosses.
Yeah.
mini boss. Them little fucking things that come out the ground. Just
Yeah.
you'd be like, all of a sudden you'd be like walking around, like, oh fuck, right, here we go, big boy, let's go.
Then you're straight in.
No, I quite enjoyed the size, and I overall I felt there was enough that it was just on the cusp of like that's perfect amount, or if there was another couple of, another 5 hours of that thing, I'd been like, oh fucking hell, that's enough now.
Yeah.
But I felt there was overall that was the perfect amount, I'd say.
Yeah.
And felt natural and relevant.
Yeah, I mean the good thing with the way they've kind of structured the game is that you don't have to do that stuff to get through the main campaign. You don't really need to do any side stuff. They'll give you the tools and the levels that you need to get through that. It's only when you want to tackle, all the side stuff that you really need to make sure, your Kratos is like leveled up to a high standard, because you're going to need the best gear to do the harder stuff. But I like the fact that it is. I think anyone could sit there and ignore that and just go back to it at the end, and it will feel just as natural. Like you've got all these kind of adventures stored up to tackle in post game, or as we did it, you can play it as you're going and you kind of adventuring on the side, which works both ways. I think that's a sign of some good balance there, because a lot of games don't really give you the time to breathe and dive into the side stuff, even if it's just narratively. They're always up your arse about the impending doom, and you're like, oh, all right, I best save the world then. Let's bloody get on with that, shall we? The main meat and potatoes of this game, though, in my view, is that combat. This is what people come to the show to experience. Is Kratos and his axe and his blades and all these different skills and his tool sets and whatnot. I think they really stepped up a significant level here. More fluid, more vertical. You can hook shot your way up to things. There's enemies up on higher levels, not just on one horizontal plane. It's exciting. It's intense.
And I'll tell you what they've done, which was fantastic. The most minor detail that people just fly over people's heads. And in a game where it's a sequel, they will give... This happened throughout the whole game, which just adds to how good it is. There was the little conversations with Mimir... Yeah. Where, if you listen carefully, he will explain to you exactly why his weapons have gone back to level 1. Why he can't use... There's even conversations as to why he can't use his Greek magic or skills he used to do. They make it known that, like, you end the first game, you're like, fucking this powerhouse, everything's leveled up. You start this game that's like, what, weeks, months after the first one ends, or whatever.
2 winters.
2 winters.
Now, how long's a winter
years.
Is what I would ask people, and people never been able to answer that, because they say winter's coming on that bloody Game of Thrones. How long was that? Decade. These blokes are gods as well.
Exactly.
So everyone went, oh, Atreus has grown up too quick. And I was like, he's a god. He might grow up in like 5 minutes compared to you.
Exactly.
You're nothing but a mere mortal to him.
Mere mortal. But yeah, that's great. So they never explain that. You get a sequel and you go, right, fucking hell. Like, you think,
Lara Croft, where's all your skills gone? You can't. She's like, I don't know.
Ago. But they give it a great explanation to that. It's very minimal.
It
probably will fly over people's heads. But
no, I definitely noticed that early on when they kind of chat about it.
That brain go, oh right, no, that's why I'm restarting everything. Because you got that fucking axe. You go, well, this was fully upgraded about 10 hours ago. Come on.
Yeah, the more you can keep Rodney and Ronnie happy with these contextualizations, the better you'll normally fare with us. But yeah, the overall combat's excellent, and coupled with more enemy variety, in particular the sub bosses, because what was the other criticism? You keep fighting those fucking trolls.
Trolls, yeah.
Not anymore. There's trolls in the game,
but
there's a lot.
Very
lot
far and few between.
Yes, there's they are more, indeed.
Which I assumed was another subject of Metroidvania. There was about 4 or 5 I found. that were just like statues. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll come back later and there'll be real thing. They never did. I was like, oh.
No, maybe we haven't discovered so. Maybe we
Well,
can't work
that's
it out. But yeah, I think they're playing with that whole troll
that
thing.
whole-
They're poking fun at themselves with those trolls that lock down. There's like a little narrative, like small story thread about that. It's quite funny to follow. But they've kind of replaced the trolls with the deluge of different sub bosses and whatnot, and in my opinion, creates another best in class combat experience. It really is just fucking phenomenal. What say you on the combat front and the enemies that you get to take down with it? Because you've got all the fucking epic
brilliant.
bosses are still there as well. They're back to cause problems. It really is something when it's in full flow.
It's really good, and so they've changed what they've changed up as well. Even with the cut, like you start off with the axe and the blades. At first I was thinking, are they going to cut that off completely because of that? It's the old Spartan way.
Yeah.
Are you literally going to go back to just the axe? But they don't. They start you back off. And I was thinking, okay, this is going to be the same skill trees for both. No, they completely changed all the fucking skill trees as well.
Yeah.
There's moves I had in the first one. I remember I had this move where you could throw the axe at someone and it would hit them and then it would come back and it would be like frozen or
That's
whatever.
Frost
Thing, but that weren't to be seen. Now you fucking hold it down. You got a frozen X, boss. You can do it straight off the dot. It's fucking quality. But just the arsenal that you have is just brilliant to it. Like, and what is it? For every weapon you have, is it L1 has like a light runic attack, then you have a heavy runic attack, then you have your skills that you have. You really, it sounds convoluted, like you're like, fucking hell, how am I going to remember to do all these combos, these fucking moves, and I've got these 4 runic attacks, then I've got one on the fucking L1 and 0.
Then my companion's got bows to be fired at and a fucking runic attack as well. It's on cooldown, you're like, oh.
That's it. You're like, Jesus Christ. But once you start getting that and start sort of like experimenting with this, you can be an absolute fucking bar. You can wipe through enemies. Look, say you still get your fucking arse handed to you in some areas. You get some of the big boys come through them fucking gates or mist things. You're like, cool, I wasn't expecting this. But yeah, you do feel like a fucking badass. And like you say, there's a new stretch of verticality. Get these moves now straight off the bat. Death from above. You never had that before.
No, yeah, you can launch off of a higher kind of plane down onto a lower plane and just wreak havoc on whatever's below you and just annihilate the smaller enemies. It's you can really get into a nice flow.
What I also liked as well is they sort of they implemented the combat into puzzle solving as well. So there was like certain puzzles where you had to get people to shoot, like your companion to shoot bits, and then you'd have to use one of your weapons to then to
ignite them,
ignite it, exactly. It was incredible, really.
That's a half decent segue into like the puzzles element, because I know sometimes that chaps people's arse at how much downtime there is in the game, but I really do think that the downtime's not as bad as what people think. A lot of the character work's done then, so like when you're wandering around trying to solve things, there's you and your companions and Mimir chatting away. Like there's a lot that happens just character based. Some really funny writing in this as well. It honestly had me in fucking stitches sometimes.
And a lot of fucking. There must have been hours upon hours in that fucking studio, especially like the likes of like Kratos and Mimir, waffling away. Especially Mimir, I can listen to him for hours.
Yeah,
it's quality.
Still the world's best storyteller, that's for sure. But what did you make about the whole puzzle elements and using that as they use as a transition between quote unquote more exciting elements? Are they required, or should this game perhaps just look at being full blast, chaos with the great combat we've just spoken about?
Yeah, to be fair, I did think it was quite light on puzzle elements, to be fair on this. It was only just the old, set fire to this bit, set fire to that bit. There wasn't too much, like in comparison to something like Uncharted, where you're having to figure out puzzle, or worst case scenario, something like fucking Hellblade. Is it Hellblade? Yeah.
Oh, Hellblade, some of the worst puzzles
Yeah.
ever in a video
And they could have
game.
implemented them with them fucking Norse and Runic.
Oh, mate, don't.
Stick a few of them about fucking the Lake of Nine. Go and find them, you bastard. So they could have done stuff like that. But no, I thought it was quite light on puzzle solving, really, which sort of, I suppose it did play to its credit, really. But what the little that they did, like I say, I was just very impressed because they added it. So you weren't just sat there going, right, how the fuck am I going to do this? It was just sort of like, oh, okay, I know what to do. Now I've just got to get it. The only trouble I had was like there was a few, it's like the chests where you had like variations of chests of how to open them. They were in the first game, weren't they? And it got to it got to the point where I was like, well, how the fuck am I going to do this? Because I didn't know where to stand.
Yeah.
I was like, right, do I stand in? It was more sort of a tale of like logistics, really. Do I go from there or there rather than sort of going, well, what else do I need? I knew exactly what I needed. I just didn't know where I had to be standing and what to do, what would reach. But no, I thought it was a decent medium of a thing. Just overall, I'd say it's quite lacking in comparison to the first game or any of PlayStation's other games.
One of the things that it's come under fire for is that companions, quote unquote, spoiling puzzles before you've had a chance to solve them yourself.
Yeah.
Did it feel like there was less puzzles just simply because half the time Amir was going, "Rah, do that," and you're like, all right, I was going to do it anyway, mate.
Yeah, that is true, to be fair. I did find that every time you sort of try and... I think my instant reaction was to throw an axe or whatever I saw. I was like, yeah, and he's like, no, that's not the right one. Oh, okay. So, yeah, it probably was, actually. They probably don't want you getting hung up on that.
It's a hard balance because there is nothing worse playing a game that isn't a puzzle game and getting just stuck. There's nothing worse than that. Nah. So I don't envy the decision made to offer those tips. Now, obviously, for people that don't want to ever find out how a puzzle works until they get really stuck, because then they'll look at a guide. You could. I remember. I think it's Shadow of the Tomb Raider that did it. Maybe Rise did it as well, but Shadow definitely had it where you could choose the amount of age you would get for puzzles, and it would basically you would either remove hints altogether or it would increase the frequency in which they were offered. So you could do something like that if you were being super granular about it. But I think if you're going to go one way or the other, I don't want to get stuck on something in this game on the critical path at least, because the side stuff they don't really give too much away usually. They kind of leave you. Some of those fucking chests, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, Mimir, have you gone to sleep, mate? And he's just silent. I'm like, oh, you fucking chirping earlier on. No, you ain't got a clue, have you, mate? Struggling.
No, there was a section as well where I was like, how the fuck do I get over there? I could see there was a chest up there. I was like, I've been walking around this area. It was in that jungle. I was like, right, how the fuck do I bloody get round here? I was like, I can see something up there. And it was something simple, but it sort of passed me by so easily. And I was like, oh, right.
Yeah.
But no, I think it was all right, to be fair.
If you're gonna have puzzles in the way of a critical path, you have to err on the side of caution, because you can't afford to have people stuck getting annoyed at it, especially in a game that's so good when it's kicking off, because you'll just get that people will just dig at it and say it's slowed down by the puzzles, they're too hard, because they're one of the most subjective things in games, I find, puzzles, because you could look at it, Adkins, and get it straight away, and I'll look at it and go, what the fuck? Like, there's no...
Probably the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it could happen the other way around, or in any degree between, us and them and anyone else that's doing it. It really is it's a minefield to do. So unless your game is a puzzle game, don't hang your audience out to dry. I get people frustrated that it's too hand-holding, but I just beg you to think of the alternative where you get no help and you sit there for 20 minutes and then you get a guide and you feel like you've cheated it. And he's like, well, you don't want that. So I'll take the help of Mimir, but fucking blabbing away and giving away the puzzle elements just shows that he is really the smartest man on earth as well. So plays into that level of context. We start to wind down a little bit. Anything major that you wanted to address or comments to bring up. I've got a few little small things, like there's a postie here that picks up your stuff if you forget to pick it up in combat. I mean, Destiny all over, and that's just a godsend in many ways.
Yeah, there was a lot of little fucking quality of life improvements I found. Trying to think of what else.
Well, there's a small one for me. When you get to an area and there's a chain that you can kick down to then access it as a shortcut later.
Yeah.
In the OG one, you kick it down and Kratos would immediately jump on the chain and start to go down.
Right,
and half the time you didn't want to. You wanted to just kick it down and carry on.
Yeah.
He kicks it down and carries on.
That is very true. Yep, that's another one.
You can pick up and launch like pillars, broken pillars that are on the battlefield at enemies. That's quite cool. You just hit, I think it's circle. He picks it up and just fucks this massive, great big boulder towards the enemies. There is a lot there.
No, there is no. The thing that really stuck out to me that was the just them conversations as well. Just that when you're riding around, fucking on the boat and stuff, or just the amount of information that's in there, and so even the stuff that they were talking about, like create like past experiences. So much for fans of the franchise.
Lots of references.
There's lots of references to his. Like Mimir's asking him about what it was like in Sparta and what was it like to be a general. It really was. But no, I think the biggest thing was the additional characters, like how in depth there was. Like you said, it's a bigger, grander game, and it brings definitely more characters, but it also expands the ones that you started to get to know.
Yeah.
But it sort of brings them to the light. There's some performances in this that you're just like, fucking hell, wow. I didn't anticipate that from them. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just there's no bad characters in this. I don't think. I don't think.
No.
Like even with the old game, like with the first game, you had some of the bosses that you was like thought it sort of talked about them, but you didn't really. You didn't get to know them as people, whereas this, like you say, straight off the bat, you're talking with Odin, and you're like, "Fucking hell!" You're getting to know this character. What outside of him and Kratos fucking fighting or whatever, you're getting to know them as characters and about their life story and stuff. It's really good, but. Some sensational performances.
Yeah, the character that's good with Paul. Actually, the voice acting is stellar as usual. The production, just in general for the game, is just as usual. Like so high, just a level above many or most other video games that come out. And
how did you stand on like the quality of the game? Like performance-wise, perfect, flawless. Didn't have any issues with that.
No, I didn't either.
Graphically, like the variations of the different realms and stuff, it looked gorgeous.
Environments are all great. Yeah, I think I know what you're sort of scratching at. I don't think it looks.
It's not. Yeah,
it ain't mind blowing when you turn it on.
Uncharted 3 to Uncharted 4, you're like,
yeah,
oh fuck me, I didn't get that with this.
No,
I did one. There was one level, and I was like, cool, blimey, this looks nice.
Yeah.
I won't say what because it's a bit of a spoiler, but when you get to, you're like, "Oh, blimey!"
Yeah.
Other than that, I was like, it's just sort of it does have that same sort of feeling. It's not saying that it's a bad-looking game, just that I was expecting a little bit more to be like sort of, "Cool, no, this is PS5 territory." But again, is that because we're catering for those scrubs down in the PS4?
Probably.
PS4 section.
Yeah,
come on, it's been 2 years now, boys. Get one.
It's strange because the characters do look good, but they look a bit grubby. Like, and some of them don't look very they look just good. It's not the if you were comparing it against something like Naughty Dog.
Yeah,
there's definitely Naughty Dog know the tricks of the trade there. They've got the advantage there. Their characters and their models and their animation, their facial animation, and even like Horizon Forbidden West's facial animations were really good for that. And I think it's lacking a little bit here, particularly perhaps on characters that don't get as much screen time, because Kratos, Atreus, they look phenomenal throughout, and they're really expressive. But you'll notice some of the the secondary or tertiary characters perhaps don't have that. And because the cast is expanded, you see a lot more of like those type of faces. But yeah, I get what you're saying. It's definitely not an absolute bollard grabber from a visual perspective. Performance is solid though, and bugs. I think I had a couple of audio bugs to start with, but it could be the headset. I don't know, but still had them. But really, nothing that caused me any grief whatsoever. It really is just another one of these sort of Sony polished, high production value, high quality games that we just don't get as often as perhaps we would want. But when we do get them, we have to kind of just tip the cap to them. Well, I think it's time to do the needful, get to that Dimp Digital Gaming Gallery and say, look, does God of War Ragnarok first of all deserve to go in there? Is it going to be placed somewhere within your personal exhibition, Mr. Adkins, or am I going to slam this door and lock the keys? Well, I won't lock the keys, I'll use the keys to lock it usually. That's how it works. Yeah,
no, it's definitely going in, definitely popping in there.
Same for me as well. Well, look, the big question is, how is it going to be recognised in your showcase? We've got God of War, 2018 sitting there on a platinum for me, and I believe you. Logan as well. He's giving it that as well, and that's the 2018 version. But Ragnarok, is it a worthy enough sequel to land itself a platinum, or does it? Well, it'll feel like a disappointment if it gets a gold, but it's still better than the vast majority of games we talk about on this show. So don't be disappointed if that's where it ends up.
No. I'm in two minds here. No, I'll give it. I'll get hit. Just scrapes the bronze. No, it just scrapes the platinum for me. What I would say is, you could argue a gold, but for the wrong reasons. Like the reasons that you say is because it's not new and fresh.
Yeah,
it's because of you've got that feeling of familiarity. It's building on there. What I would give it a platinum for is that the anticipation of it, the what the fuck are they going to do? How are they going to do this? Similar to what we had with Last of Us. I was like, how are they going to outdo that game? That was fucking brilliant. I wouldn't say they've outdone the first one, but it still managed to. I still walked away happy with what it was.
Yeah.
And would therefore recommend it to anybody else. It's still a fantastic game. I'm gonna give it the platinum because I feel overall, as its singular package on its own, if you pretended that the first game didn't exist, it was a fucking comic book or something, and this was on its own, you'd be like, wow, that's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, if someone's gonna give it a gold, and I go fair play, because they could have done slight things better that you would have gone, fuck me, that is next gen, and that is fucking the step. But no, brilliant. So yeah, just scrapes the platinum for me. What say you?
Yeah, same platinum. I won't labour it. I totally agree with what you kind of said there, and I think that in general it had a really tough job on its hands here. The hype was just uncontrollable as well, and to still come away and deliver something that compelling and that good and expand in some really impressive ways, whether it's just looking at the combat sequences and the enemy variety just as one part, is something that should be applauded, and I have applauded it many times, and I will continue to applaud this series. And it sits there not above the original, but I think it can stand alongside it as like a bigger, more expansive brother, and say, look, here's the what a 1-2 punch we've got now. God of War and God of War Ragnarok. Like, if you've never played either of those before and you pick up a PS5 for the first time and you go through that, you're going to have your fucking bollocks blown off. So I really do think it's great, and pleased that they got it out, pleased that it's come out in such a good shape, and pleased to have gone through it, pleased to have got the platinum, and what a great revival of this franchise this has had, and who knows what the future will hold for God of War, but they've done themselves proud with God of War and God of War Ragnarok. Sony Santa Monica really come of age with these two games and shown what they're capable of, and super interested to see what they do next, and perhaps what the future is for God of War. But a nice platinum for God of War Ragnarok from myself and Adkins. That's a good news story and a happy way to end this week's Idle Game Chat. Nothing more for us to say other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.